And we're back again. Welcome to Soul Hugs and welcome to my last episode here in Whistler. When you are going to listen to this episode, or when I will upload the episode, I will be in Montreal. But how it will be and what I will go through, that will be something else. I'm really looking forward to my room. I know how it looks like. I have big windows and I just love it because that's one thing I really, really need. I need sunlight. I need light, natural light in an apartment or in a room. Really looking forward to it. In today's episode, we will talk about Whistler wisdom. I was really looking forward to this episode. The most important thing for me in this episode is to give you a bit of insight in what to expect coming to Whistler. Because the reason I came to Whistler was because I thought it will be the place where I will get what I was looking for. Like, people told me a completely different perspective of how I experienced it and how I perceived it. Not that what they said was wrong. It wasn't. It's just I would have loved to have someone that feels similar to me, that could be aware of this and that. And that's how it is here in Whistler. What you can know about it, what you can do with it, and how you can adjust, and figuring things out quicker than I did. Breaking down the stigma around Whistler being such a great place, which it definitely is, pretty sure, for some people, but it is far away from reality. To have a different point of view, a different perspective from someone that is highly sensitive, from someone that loves to connect with people, loves to build connections, loves to explore, develop, evolve, and yeah, because Whistler's everything but nothing I just said. So yeah, that's important to me, to talk about my truth and to not always keep up the stigma or like the picture of Whistler that everything is great, because it's not. Please keep in mind, it is my perception, it is my perspective and my experiences. If you want to go to Whistler, please do go, try it out. Maybe you will have the best time here. And there's nothing wrong about it. I hope this one will help you to have like a bit better picture of Whistler and what to expect and about the people here. Again, my perception. Let's jump into it. Before I start, this episode will be a summary of all the texts I wrote, all the phases and stages I went through in Whistler, slowly collecting bits and pieces that formed my reality and my perception of Whistler and the people here. Basically like a little journey through my life in Whistler in terms of like my texts. I will read you the texts I wrote when I came to Canada and when I arrived in Vancouver, because to understand my perception and my experiences and my feelings about Whistler, it's important to know at what stage I was in my life before I got to Whistler, and what I was longing for, what I was looking for, what I wanted to find, because it is a really important part with what intentions you go to Whistler and what person you are, because that will definitely guide your experience here. I will read it so that it makes sense and that it definitely like sets the bar of like how and why I perceived it that way and my experiences and everything. So yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, I'm highly sensitive. just to mention that. The brain works a bit different. I always knew I'm like highly sensitive. Not always, but like at some point when I was like growing up. I knew, and it explained a lot for myself. Also like when I went to therapy and stuff, and like how I perceive things and how I feel. I actually just figured out here in Whistler that it is included in neurodivergency. The way my brain works is just a bit different compared to like I would say the average brain. If people are highly sensitive, it is so different in every single person and every personality. It is different, and there's no recipe of how to deal with it. It is really individual. So even though I figured out how to deal with it, it doesn't mean that it is the way you can deal with it. Because as I said, like it's very individual, it's very unique, And it's both. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But I think even that you have intense periods where you feel the bad things or the negative things, it is the most beautiful thing. And I think it's really special. I'm really grateful for how I am. And I love it. So highly sensitive, the way it works for me, how I would explain it. In terms of people, I would say I'm more aware of like the vibrations. Every one of us knows how it feels like walking into a room, but there was just a huge discussion just before you entered the room and you can feel the energy. That's, I would say, the best example. And like the way I perceive it is just like the tiniest details, the tiniest things that happen inside of people, I can feel if I accept seeing it or feeling it. Sometimes I can turn it off, and I think I turn it off, but I still feel it and I still get it. It's just like that it comes later, not in the moment. And sometimes if it's on, I would describe it as on, I just truly like feel the person. What I figured during the years is that sometimes it's hard for people that I'm around. I would say I'm a really calm person, a really nice person to be around with, but some people definitely feel triggered because if I want to, I see people before they see themselves, and I can feel things they try to hide. So that's definitely triggering for some people, and I'm aware of that. It's definitely hard to find the right people you can openly talk to or you actually have like a human connection with. But yeah, highly sensitivity, my brain just works a bit different, and the way I see life or like walk through my life is just filled with love and color. It's crazy because I've never done any kind of drugs, and especially mushrooms, because the way people describe their trips is actually the way I perceive my daily life. Obviously, if I see a person, I don't see the person shining or glowing or something, but it's more about like what you feel or what I feel. But I see the tree so colorful and like not breathing, but you can see motion and life in like a tree. Like basically it's like, yeah. Oh, I don't know, should I cut it out? Yeah, that's basically how I perceive life, and I see beauty and magic in everything around me. Yeah, and people obviously play a big role in your daily life and on how you feel. I'm just really aware of people and vibes. If I explain it to people, I tend to say vibrations because it makes more sense. Yeah, so I'm a highly sensitive person, and the last 4 years I decided to I talked about in the earlier episodes when I went through my breakup and like focused back on myself, and when I've spent a lot of time by myself exploring and rediscovering myself, and then starting traveling solo and going beyond my limits and my capacity because I'm curious and I want to challenge myself and see how much further I can go, which ended up being exhausted and really longing for human connection and sharing things with a person. For the reason that I experience everything so deeply and feel everything so deeply, being alone for such a long time obviously felt so intense as well. It feels like double the time for like other people. Truly alone and deeply alone. Like the feeling of like doing things alone. Of course, like you have people around you, but they don't necessarily fill your cup. And especially most of my friendships are based on distance. I'm in contact with like most of my friends via phone. All the people that are really close to me are somewhere else in the world, which is lovely in a way, but also it makes it really hard, especially if you need a human connection or just a hug. Yeah, just to describe it a bit better, to make it easier for you to understand. I feel everything and I perceive everything. As a highly sensitive person, I experience everything so much more intensely. Not just the everyday life and my surroundings. Especially traveling can often be overwhelming, and I can't always put everything into words right away, but I can feel it. That's why I write so much and need time alone. Each person experiences what it's like to travel and be alone differently. And although I was already quite comfortable in being alone before I left for Australia, I often reached my limits in the last 3 years. Also, just because I wanted to see how much further I could go. As fulfilling as this life is in all its aspects, it also sometimes hurts. It hurts because you realize how alone you can actually be. And people can't understand how you experience life if they've never lived it that way themselves. I wish more people could see the world the way I see it. When I look at someone, I want to see the same excitement, the same emotions that I feel. But when I look left and right, often there is no one there. As long as there's no one there, you're there for yourself. And at a certain point, it becomes hard to change that. That's about my hyper-independence. Despite sometimes feeling alone, I'm totally happy on my own. The last 4 years, I've experienced so much and grown so much, being as intensely alone as a very few people probably ever will be, because I also chose it myself. I can open up to people. I just think not everyone knows how to handle it. It doesn't mean I don't do it, because that's exactly what life is for. To feel, to learn, maybe get hurt, but maybe also be surprised. And even though you never spend enough time in one place and people come and go, it's not impossible to build and maintain deep connections. You just have to use the time you have and want it. It might sound cliche, but I believe people come into your life not when you expect, want, or need them to, but when you're ready for it. Okay, so that was the text I wrote when I arrived in Vancouver. And this whole episode most of the episode will be filled with the text I wrote, especially like the next text I will read was the first text I wrote here in Whistler. I arrived in a hostel and there were a lot of people actually, and I spoke about that in earlier episodes as well. I always try to like integrate myself and to start conversations. I was really struggling and I was like, why now and why here? In the end, I figured out that it wasn't really me, it was more the vibrations of the people there, and that is actually quite common here in Whistler. In my perception, Yeah, I will continue with the text. You're surrounded by people, but everything feels surface level. You're surrounded by groups, but you don't want to force yourself into them, also because it just feels wrong. When I find time alone here, I don't feel fear of missing out. Instead, I feel more like I'm being antisocial. Being surrounded by these circumstances can make you feel down. Since I've been here, I've had days here and there where I've struggled to socialize. What's happening now in this place? No idea. I've been trying to figure it out. Have I been alone for too long? Are my depth and expectations for conversations, the way I connect with people, getting in the way? Am I feeling too many energies and stories that I can't fully understand? I don't want to overwhelm anyone with my way of being. I've wondered how I came across to people, because I often spend time alone, get my energy either from being in nature, from writing, or from having great conversations. And because I prioritize my health and well-being instead of going out partying. Could it be that people approach me less because they see I'm quiet, spend time alone, or write a lot? It feels like people need to understand me first, because honestly, I don't know how I come across to others. And I wondered, do I want to be different right now? Do I wish I could just be more open from the beginning, less sensitive and deep, so it's easier for others? Because sometimes being highly sensitive, empathetic, and deep feels like both a blessing and a curse. Sometimes I feel like my deep soul simply doesn't fit in, because people need time, a specific moment, a certain amount of drinks, but above all, the right environment to open up and go deep. And that often doesn't match with my time management, my way of being, or my availability for depth. Describing that it doesn't match with my time management, I can be deep. I don't mind if it's morning or midday or afternoon, but most of the people are deep in the evening after going out or having drinks. And what I meant with the time management is for the reason that I need enough sleep and I prioritize my sleep. I go to bed maybe at around 9 or 10, but that's not the time people go deep. So that's what I meant with the time management and my way of being, like being able to go deep anytime and availability 24/7. If I can't go deep with someone, I can't really get much out of it. I can have a good time with people without deep conversations, but I have to feel at least some form of connection. Otherwise, I recharge from being alone, which isn't a sustainable solution either. And Georgia said to me, people can only understand you as deep as they understand themselves. And I know that my depth can sometimes scare people off or trigger things they're not ready to face when I just open my mouth. Because sometimes I see people before they see themselves. That's why in big new groups, I tend to be quieter at the beginning and observe to get a sense of the people, because I don't want to step too close to anyone. But I'm here always, and for anyone who wants to go deep, open up, or simply needs a listening ear, if they need me or reach out to me. And that's also like the perfect description of me going out. I always need time to adjust to the people and the bar or wherever it is. And I look around. I actually like look at people. I try to like get a feeling of what is the vibe here. What is like the common feeling from the people, because I can feel it. And to not be overwhelmed, I need to read the room first and adjust my energy to the energy around me. And that always takes time. So like as soon as I walk into a room, I'm overstimulated. So I preferably just sit in the corner, observe the people, adjust my energy, and then it's good. And then I can have a great time. If I have a person next to me that knows that I feel comfortable with, then I can do it faster. But if I have a person next to me that doesn't know that, obviously they start a conversation. It's not that I'm not interested in the conversation. I'm just like really distracted by the people around me. So I always like tend to like, I want to look them in the eyes and like I want to focus on the conversation. But at the same time, I have the people on my chest, basically, seeing the people, feeling the people without actually being able to read it yet. To actually be able to have a good time and to like focus on connections and conversations, I need to adjust first. So yeah, that was basically every time when I went out, especially in Whistler. That's why I don't go out that often. I can go out and I enjoy going out if I have this one person with me that lets me feel comfortable. And also like sometimes a person, I don't even have to adjust to the room or like read the room. If I have a person that lets me feel comfortable and that we are just the two of us and we will have a good time tonight, then I can just ignore the people around me. But yeah, doesn't happen that often. So and this text I wrote, I remember it. I think it was definitely in November, and I think it was the first or second week of me working. Where I was working, we had big windows, and it was actually the first time that I saw the mountain, and the sun was rising while we were in the cafe. So we always went out to like see the sunrise and the mountain, which was beautiful, and I was so amazed by it. Yeah, that was also like the text or the thoughts I had after. So I will read it. I just want to be happy. There's such an indescribable magic in this kind of life. Every love feels so alive. Every spark of joy is so fulfilling. And every tear is so relieving. The emotions you go through, every high and every low, are so intense. But I gladly accept that, because feeling pure happiness so intensely is beyond words. I think that also helps a bit to like realize how I perceive my life or the life around me. I will read the next text. The last few days have been strange. Not much happened, but at the same time almost too much. I noticed everything, but thought it wasn't urgent enough to journal about, because as I said, not much happened. But after the 5th day, I realized how overwhelmed my capacity for perception was. I found it hard to follow conversations, express myself, or concentrate. Everything I do it with 100% and full awareness. But for that, I need a daily reset. Doesn't matter if I want to or not. We experience so much every day, and so many things, even the tiniest details, influence our well-being and our sense of being. For some, it's more, for others less. But everyone reaches a point where it becomes too much, sooner or later. So don't forget to take some time to pause and breathe sometimes, to create space and room for new things. I find it an important reminder, especially for the life here in Whistler, because it's so fast-paced and everyone is like, basically, if you're listening to it and if you're in Whistler, keep that in mind. We need a break sometimes and a good breath. Be kind to your body and your mind. Next text. That was when I moved to my place here. I think it was the beginning of December. I think it was the second day. And I remember having those thoughts in mind as soon as I woke up, and I was like staring at the ceiling. And I was like, God, and here I am. But yeah, that's the next text I will read. I woke up and it felt so strange. A feeling that had been there for days, but I couldn't grasp it. The feeling, I'm scared. Scared that I won't find my people here. Here I am now, in my own apartment, asking myself, is that it? It only took 2 days, and I repeat a routine, but the social part is missing. Where am I supposed to meet people? Where, when I rarely go out partying? My work isn't very social. I live alone, and I don't use online platforms. Half the people I know so far won't come to me on their own, because they don't need to, because they already have their groups. I'm scared, because it's the first time I will be staying in one place for a longer time. Does this mean being an adult? Not knowing where to meet people when friends from back home or university aren't within reach? Is that the reason why so many people keep traveling or never even start traveling? Because life today is so fast-paced, and it's getting harder to meet people naturally in a new place, in a new routine, in an everyday life, in a new country, in your own apartment. I'm longing to meet people, but at the same time I'm scared of getting stuck because of people. I still have so many plans, but for now it's okay the way it is. And everything will fall into place. Sometimes we have to try new things to find solutions. And after a few days, the fear and these thoughts faded. My focus shifted back to myself, and everything else seemed less bad again. But that's exactly my point. At a certain point, everyone needs people around them who are good for them. And I draw so much energy from good conversation and vibes. But because I'm so comfortable being alone and never force anything, I'm also worried. Worried that every day I draw energy from being alone, because no one is there, is another day that makes it harder for others to connect with me. Because constantly drawing energy from being alone is exhausting in the long run, and not always the best solution. That was a time when a lot of people asked me, oh, Anna, how are you? How do you like this place? And it was so hard for me to answer this question, and it took me so long. And when I saw the message, I left it on purpose because it was so hard to find the right words. I think back then I already had a feeling, but the feeling was not big enough to actually take it as something. So let's go. People ask me how I like it here. It's different compared to everything I've experienced over the past 2 years. It's not that I don't like it. I'm happy with this kind of life, my life. It just takes time to get used to new surroundings. But with every passing day, I fall more in love with this new life. Because it doesn't matter where I am, as long as I'm happy. And that's very true, but at this time I talked myself into it that I'm still happy being in this life, in my life, which is true, but it was hard figuring out the happiness here. So I definitely talked myself into, oh, I'm happy, not here, but that's what I chose. So it's my responsibility to be happy, which is also one thing of me being too hard on myself. I think from then on it actually went down with my happiness because I wasn't really happy here. We jump to the next text. Now I find myself in a situation where I can actually build something for once, from scratch. Having a place and structure, things I lacked so much over the past few years, but also being completely new in a town that moves incredibly fast, even though you don't. A town that is so different from the places I've been before. And a town where you know you're gonna stay. The need to meet new people and build connections is more present, but also harder than ever. The struggle between being able to be alone and feeling lonely. In a completely new environment, having to find new things under new circumstances that make you feel good when you're not doing well. What used to be, for example, my going outside, laying in the grass and staring in the sky is impossible here in winter. So you have to rediscover yourself in every imaginable way. But this time, with the difference that you are your own anchor. On top of that, there's the present state of being stuck between two languages. Losing the articulation and vocabulary in your mother tongue more and more, but not being fully fluent in the foreign language either. You lose another piece of your former self, of your identity. It's not just about being able to speak multiple languages, but about having built your own personality in the second language, and gradually becoming that person in your mother tongue as well. Before, you went along with the change, but now you're starting to feel the change within yourself. So the second part of this text was obviously like my thing, and like obviously living abroad for 3 years now, over 3 years, being surrounded by another language, speaking another language all the time, definitely lets you lose vocabulary and articulation in your mother tongue, especially if you speak to like friends or family not that often. And I definitely had a lot of times where everything felt too much. I was like, God, I can't breathe. And then in small, quiet moments, like sitting on the bus and seeing the mountains, let me forget all my emotions and thoughts. It's like a reset, and everything is fine again. Walking around and looking around and seeing the mountain or like the sunlight and feeling grounded, realizing that it's actually not that bad. You are here in this moment and nothing is really that bad. So yeah, that's just me and a thought. And now we come to the next one. That was like the first awakening moment of how much influence the people around you actually have on yourself. And like I catch myself thinking about that after I've already done it. Isn't it crazy how the people around us influence our thinking through what they do, how they do it? Whether it's comparing yourself to others or getting caught up in drama, everyone's different and everyone works differently. So nothing is truly comparable. But when you break it down, it comes to either how they live their life or how you live yours. But when you step back and create some healthy distance from it all, you start to care less. You begin to free your thinking and stop being influenced by others. You realize that what others do or how they do it doesn't really matter, because you have your own life to live. It just have to work for you, no one else. That's how it is. The next text was January 4th. And that was my really first intense down. I thought I hit rock bottom there. I think I hit rock bottom a few times here, I'm not gonna lie. It just felt different every time. But yeah, I felt like that was the lowest I've ever been. I remember I was on the phone with my mum, and I remember her saying something to me. I burst into tears, and I was like, no, Mum, you don't get it. It just feels like that. Even if people ask me or like if I tell them, it just feels like I'm talking to myself because no one understands. And I just truly feel lonely and alone. Yeah, that was the first time I actually cried here. And I mentioned it in the Montreal episodes that I cry doesn't happen often. I can count on, well, if you ignore Whistler, I can count on one hand how often I cried in the past 4 years. Really, I don't cry really often. Sometimes I had the feeling, I could feel it in my chest. I was like, I would love to cry, but I can't. And I truly, I cannot. It's like, basically. There's, even if I want to and I try, nothing comes out. So that's why I barely cry. And that was the first time I cried here in Whistler. And from then on, I think I cried a few times, maybe 3. That day, on my way to work, I asked myself how I was really doing, because I already had a sense of something. I felt something, but I couldn't put it into words. At work, I was asked and even messaged the question, "How are you?" without having a clear answer. I don't know, but at the same time I feel it. What I feel and can perceive is that something is missing, comparable to an emptiness. I don't feel exactly empty, but that's the closest way to describe it. I don't mind being alone, but I think because for the first time I'm drawing from my own resources without really being able to recharge, it feels emptier, more present, more intense. What I need isn't there, and I realize this emptiness has always been there. The need and desire to have people in my life who truly understand me. After 4 years of being intensely alone, traveling solo, I'm now at the point where I can no longer fill this emptiness by myself. The people around me can cover it up for the moment, but I can't draw energy from them if that connection isn't there, which is why the emptiness remains unfilled. Every time I talk to someone, I do it, but it doesn't help me anymore, because it feels like I'm talking to myself. Not because others don't understand or know what I mean, but because I have a way of constantly evolving, of consciously feeling into emotions even if it hurts, because I can sit in discomfort, reflecting on things and myself, a way that for many is too much, too open, too direct, too deep, too overwhelming. But what is too much for some people is exactly right for someone else, which is why I can adapt, but I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I'm aware of things, I'm aware of situations, but what can I change? I don't expect people to be like me. It's enough for me if they understand. I tried with so many people around me, but what can you do when nothing happens? In the end, more than ever, I need people who understand me, see me, feel me. But such depth and the way of living don't come around often. I don't need pity. It doesn't help anyone. I need people who can handle my openness, depth and directness. People who see you before you say anything. People who don't try to give you advice but understand you, creating an exchange. I think this emptiness that has grown over the years, that has always been there, and that I've always filled with my own energy, confidence and positivity, I can't fill it alone anymore. This emptiness is now here until those people come into my life. I apologize already if it's too heavy or too deep. Honestly, sometimes if I read things, I'm like, God, Anna, God. But I think it's just because I don't have this person. So I express it in words. What I would do anyways, but that was in January, and it actually took me, I just felt empty. I was just there. People, like my friends asked me, Anna, how are you? And after I shared how I feel, they're like always checking in, asking, how are you today? I'm like, honestly, empty. Like it was so hard. I'm really sorry. It was so hard to deal with me, I think, because there was no, I was just a shell. There was no excitement. There was no spark. But I was just annoyed of people. I was like, honestly, if you come up asking me about how my day was or how are you, if you don't fucking care, then don't fucking ask me. Like I was like this, and like that's what I would still say here in Whistler. And I was like, honestly, don't fucking bother me. If you don't fucking care, then don't fucking ask. I was really angry. I was really angry at the people around me. Not the ones that are actually like there for me, but the people that pretend here in Whistler. I was just fucking annoyed of them, because that was one thing I was really like impacted by and like really shocked, and actually also I think a bit hurt by or of when I was in the hostel. Like the people, they didn't even the bare minimum. Partly they didn't even say hi. They didn't even smile. What is that for attitude? If you're annoyed of people coming in and going out, why the fuck are you in a hostel then? If you're acting like this, then just find yourself a place. Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Honestly, I'm open about it. The people in the hostel that were there when I came, they should be aware. They are. I'm pretty sure they are, because I told them. I told them how I felt in the hostel, because I would say that's the bare minimum, because I still can, even that I think you're shitty. I can still say hi or smile, but they couldn't. I definitely will cut that out. And when I wrote this text in January, I had like those 3 weeks. And the way I pull myself out is I focus back on something good and something that motivates me. And I put all the energy and everything I have into that, which was the podcast back then. I was like, you know what? That's a project. That's something I really believe in, and that will give me purpose. So I will start that. And I did, and it gave me purpose, and it was great, and I loved it, and I still love it. I'm so grateful that I started it. I actually thought about calling my therapist before, but I always said, oh no, Anna, let's wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a new day. Tomorrow will be a better day. I know I have bad days, but it won't mean that they will last. So I always continued by telling me this, like, oh, Anna, wait, tomorrow will be a new day. Tomorrow will be a better day. And sometimes that was the case, sometimes it wasn't. But I was like, I know I can make it work. I know I can do it myself. And I don't want to call her if I don't necessarily need it. But just the thought of like calling her was basically the time I needed it. But I was like, no, Anna, you can do it yourself. And I know I can, but just because I can doesn't mean that I have to. I'm so used to doing things alone and being alone and getting through things alone. And then I was like so focused on the podcast that the feeling of maybe I should call my therapist actually faded away a bit. I was already in the doing of like pulling myself out, that I was like, oh, I actually wanted to do a road trip through Canada around May, and I bought my car especially for that. I was thinking about it so much. I was like, should I do it or should I not? Because it's basically more like a to-do for me right now, because that's what I would do if I would have been in Australia or New Zealand. What I did, seeing the country and traveling around, but again, I would do it by myself. And that's how it was by the end of my time in New Zealand, that I was traveling alone, even though I wished to be able to share it with someone or take people with me, but it never happened. So I did it myself, but by the end of my time in New Zealand, it felt more like a to-do list. And I've been to so beautiful places, but I just went there, was there for 5 minutes. I was like, okay, nice. Took a few pictures, went back to the car and continued driving. So it was more like a checklist basically, and there was no fulfillment anymore. There was no excitement about seeing this place or this beach, or I don't know. And that's how I felt about if I would do the road trip through Canada now again by myself. I would just do it because it feels like a to-do, but I don't feel it, and there's no fulfillment, and I don't want to waste the money and the time doing something I don't enjoy. Yeah, I would be grateful to like see the places, but the longing of like wanting to share it with someone wouldn't be fulfilled. And I was like, okay, tomorrow is a new day, tomorrow is a good day. And it worked a bit for some weeks, some days, but I reached my limits, and I was actually empty, and I didn't have any energy anymore. I tried so many things. I tried to find, as I always do, I tried to find new things that give me purpose, or like that I can get some energy or exchange back. I wanted to volunteer at the Whistler Community Service Society. I had an appointment there. It was not possible. And then I applied to the animal shelter, because I was like, okay, well, if I can't volunteer with like people, working with people, then I would love to work with animals, to like go for a walk. But also like that took a while. I think it took 2 or 3 months to actually have the appointment to be able to go on walks with the dogs, and then you have to sign that you commit for like at least 6 months. And when I had this appointment, that was in May, I knew, okay, I will be away for like the Grand Prix, and then I will be away in Toronto, and when I can actually start would be around summer, but then I don't have enough months on my visa left. And I think I also had like a quiet feeling of probably not staying, and so I can't fulfill like the commitment of like 6 months. So I had the appointment, I think, in April or May, but I never went to actually do it because I don't want to start something but if I can't commit. I started doing sports again and like doing things for myself, but nothing really helped. And I know how to help myself, but at this time I reached a point where I couldn't help myself anymore, and everything I did before, that like things that are good for me didn't really did their job. So I was really helpless, and that was the time I was like, okay, I don't think I should travel, and I think I need to call my therapist because I can't help myself anymore. I don't have any perspective anymore. I need to call her. Yeah, that's what I posted as well. Like, I'll just read it. That was 15th of May. I haven't been good lately. Not at all. I tried to find things and solutions, but at the time it felt like there just weren't any. I found myself in a place where I couldn't help myself anymore. So much has happened, and so much is changing. Apartment, job, car, finding new routines, managing the podcast, editing, time. With the way I feel right now, it was and still is too much. I couldn't be creative, I couldn't find motivation, energy or time. And it hurts. It hurts because it's the thing I love the most. Even though I didn't have any related text when I recorded the episode, now I do. And I feel numb at my lowest. It could actually feel worse. But I don't feel anything at all anymore. I don't even feel the lowest I've ever been. Everything feels neutral. A lot of things have lost their color, their beauty, their magic. Not in themselves, but in how they feel to me. Maybe it's not about the people. Maybe it's about my life here. That was the podcast episode, The Simple Feeling of Loneliness. I explained, with like finding solutions and everything. There was like, especially with the need of like meeting people, like the longing feeling of meeting people. I could have changed my job. I could have like giving up this apartment and moved to a shared place, but that was not my solution for now, because I loved my job. I loved my job and my workplace, and I love this apartment, and I can sacrifice things, but those were actually all things I really needed at this time. I needed after traveling for so long without routine or like safety or security. Like, that's what I needed. I needed this job and I needed this apartment, but that's not how it works in Whistler. And they were solutions to meet people. As I said, changing the job and sharing, like moving out and moving into a shared house, but it's like what I need and what I want. And what do you decide? I couldn't have both. Wanting to meet people, maybe I could have met people. I would have given up myself. What I need, I would have put that aside to just like get what I want without actually security if I will get it. Like, I could have met people, but the people would have been shitty. You never know. I was just not willing to do it. So like, there was a solution, but it was not the solution for me. Not right now, not in this moment. So